Welcome back to Voice of Students, Local Part-Time Jobs, powered by Onata. We're about to get to our second part of our segment focused on tuition rates, student loans, and financial aid as a whole. There are many financial factors that go into choosing a university to attend, and it seems the better the reputation of that school, the higher the tuition. Financial aid tools do give students the opportunity to attend a university, but those students will likely be in debt for many years to come. Whether receiving federal, state, institutional, or private aid, the stressful and looming burden that students face when thinking of how they will repay these loans can often deter a successful education. According to a study conducted at The Ohio State University, 7 out of 10 college students feel stressed about how they will pay for an education.
How do you finance your education?
So for me, I finance my education through loans and the FAFSA. My tuition was fully covered by scholarships and loans, a lot of loans. But I was also fortunate to get a lot of financial aid as well. Since I am from a lower income family, I was part of the EOF program at Rutgers University.
What is UF?
It's the Educational Opportunity Fund for lower income students in New Jersey. So I was fortunate enough to get some extra money from them as well in order to fund my education. And I was put into a group with students just like me in the same financial situations.
So I actually have my family is able to support me in school, and I also have some FAFSA loans.
According to Pew Research Center, about 4 out of 10 people between ages 18 to 29 have student loan debt. If you are in this situation, have you started thinking about plans to pay off this debt?
I guess for me, since I'm fortunate enough not to have too much student loan debt, I'm more focused on just getting any job after college to build experience. Since I don't have the loan I have, it's not payments aren't due until after I graduate, and also the payments aren't too high. So I'm fortunate enough to be able to focus on just getting the most experience rather than having to get the highest paying job to be able to pay them right away.
Mm-hmm. Since I am attending law school in September, I'm able to defer my loans until after graduation when I get a job as an attorney. So right now I'm not worried at all about my debt. I also don't have a ton of debt. And the FAFSA loans that I took out were all federal loans, so they are low interest, long-term loans that I don't have to pay back for years to come.
Is it a constant stressor, the loans that you have taken?
I wouldn't say it's a constant stressor, but I feel like it was a consideration when I was applying to schools. I did come to Rutgers because my family lives in New Jersey, so I did get in-state tuition. And I guess that was a factor in why I chose this school, because if I had gone to an out-of-state school where there were some out-of-state schools that I had looked at, the cost would have been more, and I probably would have had to end up taking out more loans because my family wouldn't have been able to cover as much. So even though the loans I have right now aren't as stressful, I feel like they did hold me back from potentially doing something else that I would have preferred doing.
I agree. I feel like I did the smart route. I decided to stay in state as well by going to Rutgers, and that cut my tuition rate in half. I think if I would have gone out of state, I would have been in an enormous amount of debt, and that would have been a constant stressor. Before you go to a school, you already know the price tag. You're able to look that up on your own, and you have to weigh out the options before going to the school.
Okay, so there's certain things when you enter a university that you are required to do, such as get a meal plan and live in a dorm, unless you're certified as a commuter. So what do you guys think about the rates of these meal plans and the rates of dorming? Do you think they're too expensive? Do you think they're pushing students too far? What do you think?
I think the rates are ridiculous. If there's one thing that's overpriced, it's the housing and the meals. A friend and I did the math, how many meal plans divided by the price. If I'm not mistaken, I think it came out around $12 per meal, and it's like a buffet style when you go into the dining hall. So arguably you can eat $12 worth of food, but if you're in a 30-minute break in between classes and you want to run in and out or grab a banana or something, you're spending $12 every single time. Whereas if you were to go to one of the cafeterias and do a swipe, you're only allowed to get up to $7 per swipe. When you do the math, it comes out to $12 a swipe. So I feel like the math doesn't add up. You're definitely getting cheated out of that. And when you have meal swipes left over at the end of the semester, they don't roll over. There's nothing you could do with that, and you have already paid for them. When it comes to housing, the contracts for housing don't include winter and summer, so you're paying a ton of money to live on campus. Arguably, it's worth the money because you're so close. I know that if I did commute, then I wouldn't have made it to all my classes. Being right next to the bus stop, the convenience of having maintenance, and being able to call someone when I need help was great, but it is extremely overpriced, especially for some of the conditions of the dorms.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The price of housing and food for students is like a big reason why I decided to commute, because I also my family lives 20 minutes away from campus, so my first couple of years I did commute, and I feel like when I was commuting, I kind of, similar to what Sarah said, I feel like I had kind of less motivation, especially with my classes and extracurriculars. I feel like I didn't participate as much as I would. Like I skipped classes sometimes when I probably shouldn't have, and I feel like for people who live on campus, that's definitely an easier thing, but the costs of that are, especially for people who are lower income, like the cost of a meal plan, which you're required to have if you don't have an apartment, if you live in a dorm, those can be like a big kind of financial burden to them.
Okay. Do you feel the tuition is too expensive, or is it reasonable amount for all Americans?
I feel like tuition itself may not be overpriced, because I did read a statistic to send a student to public education that we all have been through from K through 12th grade is tens of thousands of dollars invested in you. You just don't know how much it costs because you've never paid it. Well, it's through your taxes, so you never really got the bill and saw how much money was put into your education, K through 12. So I don't know exactly how much it should cost or how much money should be going towards these resources, but I do know it is expensive. So tuition itself, not including room and board, not including other student fees that are in your term bill, but tuition has always been a really high cost, and I don't know if there's a way to cut around it without getting rid of things that you need.
Yeah, I'd say the cost of tuition for Rutgers specifically, I feel like as like a state school, the tuition, like that specific tuition is not too unreasonable. I feel like in terms of some other schools that I've looked into, the price is definitely pretty fair, but I do agree that kind of tuition as a whole in the US is like, it's definitely much more of a barrier for people who can't afford it than others. So for like a large amount of society, it is like kind of a big obstacle to getting an education that people who have money just don't have.
Right.
Yeah, you get what you pay for. If your tuition was only $1,000, what type of resources would be available to you?
Exactly. It might be a very different shift in education and everything. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but Europe does not offer financial aid because they have free tuition for citizens. So do you think that this could ever be a possibility for the States, or do you ever see that happening for us?
I mean, I feel like probably not right now under the current administration, because like they're like more conservative leaning obviously and not very into kind of like public assistance programs, but I think maybe in the future it is possible, because I have already seen like several politicians like Bernie Sanders especially talk about it. I feel like if it did happen, it would probably happen at the state level first. You'd probably see like some states like maybe California and other like wealthy kind of left-leaning states kind of try to put in public education programs. I believe actually New York already has, I know I have some friends who were from New York who actually transferred from Rutgers to schools in New York because they started having a free public college program in New York. So I think definitely in the US it probably will happen on a state level before it happens like nationwide, but someday it might be a possibility.
Yeah, I'm not completely educated in economics. I'm pretty ignorant on the topic. But me personally, I feel like it's really hard to compare a country in Europe to the United States because of the size and population. And we still have public city schools in inner cities that are not funded well. And yeah, today's administration, they're cutting a whole bunch of money from the schools that should be paid for by taxes and public funds. So the fact that we don't even have adequate education from K through 12 in some areas of this country, I don't think it's realistic that we could find the funds to, not realistic that we cannot find the funds, but I don't think it's realistic to find an efficient plan that will have the funds there to have an adequate higher education, because we fail to do that K through 12 in a lot of areas.
Okay.
Right.
So you said that Bernie Sanders supports free education. Would you elect Bernie Sanders in 2020 election?
Well, I will say I did vote for him in the primary of the last election. As far as the next election, I know there's a lot of different people running. I would say I'm not informed enough yet on all the different candidates to know who exactly I would vote for. But I will say Bernie Sanders, like his ideas, I have supported his ideas in the past.
Thank you for your view. Let's take a short break now.
We'll be back soon.